really, really appreciate you all being here. This is going to be a super fun session. We have such a good panel up here for you guys. So I'm not going to take too much time reintroducing myself, but I'm Adweek senior tech reporter Kendra Barnett. Thank you for being here. To our stars, well, let me tell you first what we're going to talk about a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. And it's funny that James was like, what's the session called? Because I don't remember either. But the point is that we're kind of at a moment where AI isn't just reshaping how marketing is done, but sort of like fundamentally reshaping what persuasion means and how it works. And this panel brings together leaders across creative, media, research. We have like a really good balance of expertise up here. Interestingly, who have all touched some world of financial services. So we're going to talk about that to discuss not just how AI is showing up in their workflows, but like what's actually working. We want tangible takeaways for our audience here. And especially like within, the context of what we just discussed in our first panel about this sort of fragmented, in some ways, low trust media ecosystem, like what does breaking through mean? What does persuasion look like? And how does AI fit into all of that in our daily lives? So that's lots to cover. And I'm pleased to introduce our panel. I will start over here at the end on my left. This is Flavio Cosenza, who is Executive Director at JPMorgan Chase, which maybe you've heard of. To Flavio's right, we have Andrew Klein, who is Senior Vice President of Creative Technology and Innovation at Publicis Media, our agency representative on the panel. Next, Stephanie Dobbs Brown, the former Chief Marketing Officer of the New York Stock Exchange, and who is starting a new venture of her own. So stay tuned for that in the financial services sector as well. And finally, last but not least, Erin Opperman, VP of Creative at Upstart, which is a cloud-based AI lending platform. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. So I want to start by talking about like something kind of tangible. Like I said, I think we want like some real hard takeaways for our audience here. Like, what is one way that your work or your approach has changed in the last 12 months due to AI, perhaps, or due to whatever? What's one thing that's changed? And this is open for whoever wants to kick us off first.
I could start. I'm like kind of freaked out myself. I'm a creative technologist, and my whole career and like passion and whole life has been like finding new and emerging technologies and using it, understanding it, and certainly have been doing in my professional career a lot of the early Gen AI and conversational AI work with our clients. Funny enough, a lot of financial brands that I come to think of it. But what is crazy right now is just the ability for me to work at the speed of the ideas that we are having. We look to come up with new solutions, new innovations, but working at Publicis Media and helping our media agencies, we're working with tons of different clients, global brands, who are all trying to do what's next, what's the next innovation, and how they do it bigger, better, and different than anybody else. And the demand for that is increasing, but the time that everybody has in the brain space to do that is minimal. And what's so incredible with the access that we have at Publicis with our Gen AI tools is like how we can really move at the speed of ideas from concept to prototype, maybe within an hour. It's a blur, it's blinding speed, it's terrifying, but it's also the most incredible, powerful unlock where it's not just me. This is how we apply this as our agency to an entire global organization. We have over 100,000 employees who have access to the same tools to allow them to, use it for insights and strategies to actually create content with it, all within very strict governance and compliances. But we are using these, and I'd say, as far as all the holding companies in the world, we're pretty advanced. We've been doing this since investing in it since 2017, but it's really this year, and over the last couple months, getting like faster and faster of like the capability that is unlocked, that we're able to like just move at such speed and such now volume. Never been busier, which is kind of like one of the worst parts of it.
Yeah, do you have a token maxing board like Meta?
I want one so bad. I did send that around to the team that like we could have a token leaderboard of who's like burning the most. It'd be really interesting to see. And I think I'm doing a lot, but I know there's a lot of even crazier stuff going on, which is cool to me.
It's hard to almost it's hard for me to think about how did I work a year ago. Because at this point, AI is my assistant. It sits in my pocket. We do everything together. And just for one tangible, I think the most valuable thing is I will just turn that microphone on and talk at it. So I lead creative teams, and a lot of my day is spent giving feedback, reviewing things, right? Whether that's from an agency or from my internal team. When I can just hit the mic and then flip through what I'm looking at, and I'm on slide 1, this is working, this is not, this is what we need to do. And then I'm great, condense that into bulleted, actionable notes and make it softer so I can send this to my team and just boom, I press the button and now it's I had somebody take dictation for me in addition to, tone and voice control. So that's just one teeny little nugget, but that's the most valuable thing that has freed up so much additional brain space for me.
Yeah, I would say, so my perspective is a little bit different. So I was a chief marketing officer of the New York Stock Exchange, left, starting my own company with a partner. So first-time founder. The speed in which we are able to work in terms of spinning up a prototype, getting feedback on the prototype, has been wild to me, especially having been in financial services or in and around regulated environments for most of my career, where it's so hard to get things done. We were just talking about that, the legal back and forth and the compliance, and it just takes time, and that's fair. But then you see kind of on the other side of this, the rate in which the world is moving, and it's so fast. And so you also see kind of how that bumps up against each other, where it's you have to kind of figure out ways to loosen that grip a little bit, even within a financial services world. But that's been wild, moving that quickly.
Flavio, what about you?
Sure. Well, I think I have a much simpler job than all of you guys, because I'm a consumer researcher, so I earn my living just talking to people, learning from people, either in conversation or through surveys, right? And now with the advent of AI, I've spent the last 12 months trying to figure out whether synthetic personas can actually replicate the preferences and behaviors of real human beings, and how do you go about doing that, right? And so that's what's changed my job, learning how to put AI in the service of learning with all of the watch-outs and risks, as well as the opportunities that it presents.
Wait, what's the answer?
Oh, if I knew the answer, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in a penthouse in a much taller building.
But do you have a sense of can the AI,
Yes.
can synthetic people replicate?
The data out there suggests that there's about 75% reliability between what a well-trained agent will say and what a human being will say. Now, when you hear that, it's also important to say that if I were to give you a survey today, in a week, you would have about 85% reliability with what you said a week earlier. So there's variability in the data, right? And this is when you're dealing with survey-based, structured type questions, right? Now, you can also build agents to have conversations with agents, right? And then it's much more of an art than a science to determine whether the output you're getting from the agent is reliable, it's familiar, does it feel right? So I've been spending a lot of time talking to agents about stuff that I've already learned from human beings to make those assessments. And it all comes down to how well trained the agent is, right? You can get a lot of bad stuff, and you can get some really good stuff. But at the end of the day, I think the question that we ask ourselves is, if you can at most get 75% reliability on the answer, what decisions are you willing to make? Right? Because at the end of the day, research is nothing more than de-risking whatever decision you're about to make. And so for tactical decisions, right, early on decisions, I think we feel good about, right? Learn and explore, we feel good about. Validate and confirm, we're not there yet.
So I said this is a really interesting panel for a few reasons, but one, because 3 of you are operating in the financial services space, and then Andrew, you've worked with some financial services clients. You've all touched this world. This is a space where trust is everything to the consumer, for the brand, and also a world that is highly regulated, as you already mentioned, Stephanie. So, considering the constraints in which you're operating every day, how do you approach tool selection? We were talking backstage actually about how, your company has been an AI lending platform for 14 years. You're not new to the game of AI, but so maybe you guys have like a kind of a culture of early adoption, but even then you're still in this highly regulated space. Like how do you decide what's appropriate and what is suited for your needs?
I'm gonna let Stephanie kick us
please,
off.
yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I'm actually not the decision maker in a lot of that. I think we have a leadership team that is, like you said, early adopters, highly progressive, and very enabling. And I think that's really important. Is it has to kind of roll top down. You can get a little traction out of bottoms up, but for the most part, like you have to have the top down infrastructure to support these things. And so I will say in my department and my team, as many tools as I can get my team's hands on as possible is just like the best way to go. Because everybody's going to adopt a slightly different way of doing things, but putting the tools in their hands, enabling them, and then asking them to teach each other is really important. So from a creative standpoint, we really kind of have a spattering. We spend a lot, I'm sure. I don't foot the bill on that either. But I think giving people the tools that they need, the space to learn and adopt, and then sharing the learnings broadly so that we can all, learn from each other so that no one person is doing this alone and repeating the effort is really important. But I think on the regulatory side, that's probably something more up your alley, right?
Yeah, but I think it's a really good point in terms of, and I think it was said on the previous panel, like the only way to know AI is to do AI. Like and you can't just be chat, like it's really using the tools. I think what I have found to be really helpful is two things. One is to have a rubric that you use when you think about what tools are we going to use. So we use, right now in the way that I've kind of always thought about it is like what's low risk, what's medium risk, what's high risk, just at the basic level. Like low risk is like internal productivity, things that like, if it breaks, it's not the end of the world, it's fixable. Medium is, customers touch it. And then high risk is, regulatory and compliance. So I think having like whatever rubric works, whether it's for your company or your team, I think that like the guide, like having guardrails on that, I think is really helpful. And then I think complementing that with principles, like if the expectation of a customer is that it's going to be handled by a human, let it be handled by a human. So you mess up, an angry customer, like that's probably not something to have, AI handling. So I think it's like having principles, another one of like always disclosing that you're using AI. So I think whatever feels right culturally for the company, but I think those guardrails around a rubric and then principles that people can then comfortably operate and they have autonomy to play around with them and to use them, I think is really helpful.
And then Andrew, you already alluded to the fact that Publicis, I think all the holdcos have their own proprietary AI platforms. I think Publicis is sort of like anecdotally considered probably the most advanced in the ecosystem.
I agree.
Yeah, but I want to ask about, what is that, how does that development look like? And then how do you work with clients to integrate the tools that they're using on the day-to-day?
So from a tooling standpoint, again, we've been building out our platform called Marcel since 2017. We've made a huge investment in that ever since. And now, again, we have full access to our entire workforce globally to access these tools. And we do something cool called Play, which is our training module. It's like pl.ai, and it gets you to do like prompting, go through all the tools. You actually prompt through all the things live. And so it's like very easy and fun to figure out how to use it. And by no means it's like everybody an expert. Everybody's at very different levels, but allows you to intelligently work through what's your job and what do you do, and then how do you apply these to your jobs in like natural ways. When we are working with clients, we're very transparent about when we're using, generative AI, whether that's for ideas or if we're going to be bringing some sort of AI solution through from, a consumer standpoint. That happens a lot, and we've been doing that since 2017. I launched like Duck Chat on Facebook Messenger back in the day with Aflac to get people to like figure out open enrollment. And it was brutal. It was like, the first thing was authenticity and how do we make sure this doesn't sound like a robot, to be like a robot. And we had to be, brand persona for the duck, but could talk. And what did everybody do after 8 months of building and crazy strategy? Break it, right? They broke the whole thing. They were asking it inappropriate questions and
Of course
things
they
that you
were.
should never do with a duck. And then great learnings, of course, but it was such a, took so long to do that, but, it didn't stop the innovation. We ended up doing Alexa and Google voice experiences for Morgan Stanley. And again, like key things, like how do we make sure this sounds natural, sounds authentic, not sounding like just, the AI. And we were doing some early pioneering work with synthetic voices that we were able to get a real voice actor that they did the podcast with and, contract with them and clone it. And, then every single real-time flow of new updates and podcasts would sound like that, sound like a human. And now we're doing that at even greater scale with ads. It's kind of evolved into real time. Now we're creating 7,500 ads at a time at a clip that tells, like an audio ad sounds extremely real and, just tells you what you need to know, the message in your own language with the special offer that's for you in your local area. It works great. People, are not necessarily too resistant. We've been living with this stuff for some time, and now it's about, how do you make these meaningful connections? But you don't get a lot of chances. That's kind of the crazy thing that we're realizing right now. It's like there's two loyalties now. We're trying to build brand loyalty with our core audiences that are people, and we're actually trying to now start building loyalty and connections with AI and your AI. And so that way we're, starting to build that relationship, but they're data-based. It's a different creative thing, right? We're as people, we're responding to messages and emotional feedback, but what the AIs are responding to is like raw data, right? What's the cheapest? What is recommended as the best? Which has the most stars? And where does that come up in these new channels, which is LLMs and search? But also, how are they going to start appearing inside your own devices, right? It's all going to be this very interconnected system that we're, working within Geo. We call it connected intent, how we build all these systems out. But trust is going to be paramount because you have to keep the trust with people, and they love your brand. But then, from a data standpoint, if you don't keep up and don't deliver, price goes up. Another competitor goes down, or something happens, that AI could switch that recommendation for you, and now you're competing against that person's AI versus the actual person. It's a little crazy stuff, but this is what we are currently dealing with right now. This is the very real day-to-day things that I'm working on, which is pretty wild.
And Flavio, what about at JPMorgan Chase? What does the culture look like, and how do you approach tool selection?
Well, the culture is very broad, as you can imagine, right? And it depends whether you're using AI to automate a process, which isn't what I'm doing. There's a lot of in-housing of creative development and production, which isn't what I'm doing. Within the context of consumer research, one of the things that keeps us really safe is compliance, data use console, functional reviews, right? Those are things that slow you down, but make you really thoughtful and purposeful in how you're going to deploy AI for the purposes of learning, right? So in our case, when we want to use AI for a particular project or initiative, we need to be able to explain how the model is trained. We need to be able to explain the provenance of the data used to train the model. We need to be able to explain the garden walls that protect our data. We need to explain whether or not our proprietary data is going to be shared, which, by the way, it isn't ever, never allowed, right? And so those are the things that keep us safe, right? So compliance in this particular case, even though oftentimes it's an impediment, I think it serves the real purpose to keep us safe and not trade on the trust that we've already earned.
Okay. In the previous panel, we talked a little bit about where AI is being deployed within marketing workflows specifically. I want to talk to the marketers on this panel specifically about are you using AI for creative development? Are you using it for media? Where is it showing up? And can you name the specific tools you're using to do each thing, or where is most important for you?
Yeah, I mean, trying to think. It's so embedded into the work. Sometimes it's hard to sit down and pull it apart and disaggregate what parts of the work are being done by creative. I will say, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things in creative development is just so much creative these days falls into there's the old is it brand and performance? Can we pull them apart? Are they the same thing? How do they work together? But in that performance bucket, your work lives and dies so fast. You're putting out so much material and so many ads and so much content, and it goes up, and if it doesn't work, it dies in a day. And I think the hit rate is something like 20% of it's going to live on, and that might even be optimistic. And so I think being able to create assets at speed that's really valuable. You can validate ideas, you can test things in market. And so in that way, like we had an example on my team this week, they had this idea for an ad. It was like a silly little performance ad that would probably live and die in a couple weeks, but the idea would have required a production. It would have required actors and a set and a couple people, and it probably would have cost a boatload of money a year ago. They made it in AI. I believe they were using Gemini through Artlist. We also use Midjourney. But in this case, they were able to spin up this video. It has it'll be live soon, so I can probably say it, but it has like a Jeopardy style theme. And it's kitschy and it's quirky and it's kind of funny. And we could just say, well, run it, test it. It took a day to make it or less. And if it dies, it dies, and we didn't lose anything. And if it's one of the winners that scales, there's a lot of upside to that. But a year ago, I would have said, there's no way we're making that. I'm not hiring actors in a production studio for an ad that might live or die. And so things like that become super valuable. I think the other side of the coin is the discretion of where do you not use it, right? And so testimonials and storytelling and things that are really meant to build trust, I would never put an AI on screen, even indirectly purporting to be a human being, because the human stories are meant to be human stories. And so disaggregating what really needs to be a driver of humanity and trust, because, I think I had an early call with someone before this panel, and I said, the data is telling us people want more humanity and more connection and more reality. And then we're being asked, okay, how do you do that with AI, right? And so how challenging is that an environment? And so I think it's not, the answer is both. You have to split it apart. What are the things that we do that really need to be human and real and authentic? And then what are the things where the advantages of creating with AI just are hard to say no to?
Any other thoughts about where specifically in the work that, I guess Andrew has already talked about it to some extent. Did you do a lot of AI-driven work at NYSE?
We were starting to, yeah. I mean, and they're doing a lot more now, which I would let them speak to. But I think that, Midjourney, I think anything that can accelerate creativity and content creation authentically, meaning it's meant to be kitschy, that's a great use case for it. I think that's, and I've been working with a lot of different marketing organizations over the last couple of years, that is an obvious place to play. I think the other place is even just cleaning up systems. Every marketing team I've ever led, that I've ever supported in any way, everybody wants cleaner, better data, wants augmented insights. So much of that takes people, takes time. There's so many platforms now that can just help do that. In fact, now one of the ones that I'm looking at is Clay. So if anybody has any information on Clay that would like to just give me the cliff notes on that at the drinks, I would love that. So there's one that we've been thinking about. But I think anything around production, I think is really, really helpful.
Yeah. Okay, I also want to just talk about, the media environment that we were just kind of setting the stage for in the first panel, about this fragmented space where audiences are navigating AI slop and misinformation, and trust is at a low in a lot of ways. How do you think about establishing trustworthiness and credibility and not putting AI into places where it shouldn't be, like customer testimonials or whatever that is?
To take that into practice, and a little bit of what Swayable does too is how do we take those insights and then apply it to the creative output, so that way we're reaching people with the right message and right audience. And I was given that example of how we crank out 7,500 audio ads, but it's funny, AI in the audio space is kind of a little bit more turnkey than most, because it's not a visual thing. There's not a lot of, it's hard to visually see. It doesn't sound like slop anymore. It sounds great. If it's great for Matthew McConaughey and Michael Caine, it's good enough for most. But they're leveraging their voices, and it's just uncanny what it sounds like. Now, what we're doing with retailers is, again, it's not so hard, right? We could basically take a CSV sheet, and we have, your first 20 seconds of what is that, a real voice actor, human voice actor telling you what is the thing. Well, come on down, it's the sale or whatever. And then we'll append at the end of it that special offer or that something very specific that we could understand from that audience that we're reaching, because we can know who we're reaching. How do we just make that a little bit more personalized and unique? And it works great, like crazy well, when you just make that little personalization nudge. But it's very difficult to do that at scale, definitely expensive, because you wouldn't make 7,500 different creatives. Somebody would think you're crazy. But we're able to do it in 5 minutes. And then they're all tagged and routed out to where they need to go. We're applying that now to social video, because a lot of the times if you're getting hit with a social video ad, you're not necessarily, unless it's like with a creator specifically, if it's just an ad, you're not even seeing anyone talking. It's just a voiceover on a video asset. And so like the ability for us to now create a great feedback loop, so that way we could put out tons of A to Z creative testing, right? And understand very nuanced, what are the voices that will work? What are the scripts that work? What are the offers that drive it? The accessibility that we find is it's incredible. We're able to talk to people in their own languages now. We never did that before. And guess what? They hear it and they come shopping because they finally, somebody's talking to them. It's like that easy and that scalable at this point. Now we're pushing into social, and it's working great, where CTV and social video can have this scalability where we take AI, but it's not so in your face. It's just giving you great information and you retain it. It's what it is. It's not like a scary slop thing.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to make a quick plug for internal creative teams. I think that between AI and I didn't mean that as a direct plug against any agency support, but more so that discretion is going to become more and more important. Having somebody at the helm of these things who is empathetic, who understands your brand, who understands your consumer, who understands the expectations of the people on the other side of these things, that layer of discretion in between the AI and the final output is going to continue to be more and more valuable, especially as we automate these things at scale. And so, it's the same thing we used to say forever, which is your creative brief, right? Shit in, shit out. I have a bad brief, you get a bad ad at the end of it. AI is the same. Are you giving it the tools, the learnings, the information that you have that is the most important? Does it know your brand? Does it know what you want to be? Then on the other end of it, do you have somebody evaluating that and gut checking it along the way? And I think when you have great internal creatives, they come with that knowledge embedded. They know their channels, they know your brand, they know the product. And so they're able to really shape and use the same way a creative director has a team of juniors. Now you just have people sitting in that creative director seat using AI as one of their team members, rather than just saying the AI is going to go do it. We don't need to look at it anymore. It's going to be great. It's probably not going to be great. You're going to have to apply a layer of discretion on top of it.
I went through we had the Massachusetts towns, though, when we were talking in AI, I went through every single one, because Newton, Newtown, it's crazy. I personally went through every single weird pronunciation. Paramus, it got wrong for those in New Jersey. It said Paramus, and I'm like, no, wrong, redo. Retrain.
But I think even beyond that, because I agree, and that was what I was going to jump in and say too, I think that from a storytelling perspective, I think it's almost too easy for any marketing team to be able to hand over product positioning, brand messaging, and push it through a Claude and just be tighten it up for me. But I think the output, and I know, also, there's so many people nodding, everything sounds the same, and it sounds like shit. The value, I think, now of, really hiring great storytellers, whether it's internal talent or agency talent and external, I think is even that much more critical. And we were just talking to a consultant, and I remember them sending us their work, and I was like, it's all double space that she ran it through chat. It's so obvious. Even if you put the parameters in there, it ends up being so similar to everything else. So I would put a higher price tag on any great storyteller, whether internally or externally, because it's so critical now, because everything sounds so similar.
Well, yeah, let me double down on that precisely, what you guys were saying, right? Because LLMs are backward looking, right? They're trained on data that exists. So how are they going to come up with a novel idea, right? Mm-hmm. And how are they going to come up with a new way into a brief, right? If it hasn't already been said, an LLM doesn't know it, right? So I would double down on the importance of this. We talk about human supervision, right? And this is, I think, what you're talking about, right? A really experienced storyteller, right? That can oversee and discern what's BS from what's really unique and distinct, right? But it's not just human supervision; it's a trained person on the space that you are.
A skill set.
Exactly.
Skill. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's really funny we're talking about this because in our newsroom this week, we just had a meeting where our editor is like, you guys need to stop writing headlines manually from our own minds that sound a little too AI-ish. And we're like, what do you mean? We wrote them. And he's like, well, just sometimes if there's a period here, or there's don't get me started on that M dash. Anyways, I'll go off. But that's my baby. But anyways, and it pisses me off because I'm like, they stole this from us, and now I'm supposed to change how I write. Anyways, I digress. But this is a good transition because I wanted to talk, Stephanie, about just upskilling and talent generally, and what are you hiring for now that you were not hiring for 2 to 3 years ago, and what are the most critical skills? You guys have both mentioned storytelling, but beyond that, what other skills?
I mean, I think, first of all, I mean, this is hygiene now, but you have to know how to prompt, properly prompt. I think that is critical. The other thing, I took a course, I don't know, a year ago when I was I'm going to try everything because I just need to know it. And it was a course that was about actually using, using AI for data analysis, which is not my strong suit. Give me the insights and I'll know what to do with them, but my eyes are going to glaze over if I have to be the one to kind of make sense out of the raw data. And it was eye-opening. And now that has become almost life-changing in terms of being able to really understand how to use AI to assess raw data and then turn it into insights that are usable has been really valuable. It doesn't replace a true consumer research team that again has the human elements. Yeah, that's true. You need that too. But those two things I think have been really helpful.
Oh no.
It's okay.
AI never would have done that.
It's just water. It's okay.
But you're human and authentic. And that's what happens.
And seen.
Any other skills that we should be hiring for now, real quick?
I mean, in research, you have to be curious. You have to be a learner by trade and have that characteristic. But I think we've always hired, but it becomes an elevated skill, is strategic thinking and the ability to discern what's BS from what's real.
Okay.
And I'm just going to say, you have to be flexible. In this day and age, the AI is outpacing so fast. So a hunger to learn and a flexibility to adapt.
Yeah.
My team is super nerds, so we love it. But it's when I help, in the office and working with colleagues, and I know that they're not even touching it yet, and I'm like, see that button? Hit that. And then switch this, and they go, oh my God, and that's the best. And it's not really about needing to go find new talent. It's about just empowering who we have with the tools. And I have almost a tear to my eye when I see some of my peers who are come back to me you remember that AI agent creator you showed me? I'm like, uh-huh. He's like, you want to see something cool? And I'm like, great. That's what I'm talking about. And then now we're getting everybody making their own agents and doing things that get crap out of the way for them so they could just focus on other bigger, better things. And it's very empowering.
Okay, we're going to do a lightning round, and then we're going to do audience questions. We probably have 10 minutes for questions, so start noodling on those right now. Lightning round that I did not tell you I was going to do, but I just thought of. Tell me in one sentence, if you can, what's one thing you saw recently that you felt broke through the noise for you, that you remembered, and maybe why do you think you remembered it? But keep it lightning. Whoever wants to go first. Sorry, I know I'm really putting you on the spot because I didn't.
And I know that I'm not the only one. I watched that freaking 7-hour moon exploration. I had it on all day, watching it that. It was so. I thought that was so amazing. I made my son, who's 6, sit there and watch it. You can't get me to watch anything for any period of time. And at first I was oh, this needs to be 45 minutes max. This is crazy that they have this on all day. And for me to have something that was so authentic, so raw, so once in a lifetime to get to see, I thought was really incredible. Despite the fact when I first turned it on, I was like, NASA, that communications team is insane to think anyone's going to sit here for 7 hours and watch
But
this.
maybe to your point, this is like the anti-AI. This is like the universal human connector of like this
Yeah.
powerful, beautiful thing that we're
Totally.
achieving together. You know.
I like felt like I was so thankful that my son was home from spring break, and I was like, you need to sit here and watch this because you're going to remember this forever, that we watched them do this.
There's a bar, I live in the Bay Area, there's a bar in Oakland that's doing a showing of them coming back.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, why are they doing this while I'm gone? And then I was like, because when they come home is while you're gone. And I was like, oh, okay. But people want that, yeah.
I heard a podcast the other day, not at the risk of sounding like a geek, but they were talking about silicon sampling. Have you guys heard about that? Artificial societies, right? And it was just fascinating, wrong in my view, but fascinating.
Okay. Well, I'll give you my, because I keep up with all the AI news, and so I'll give you my no bullshit, what's the hottest thing right now with like a million things that come out a day. But Google just launched something called Gemma 4, which is basically like Gemini. And you could install it on your phone now for free. It's called Google Edge Gallery. And I think it's going to change every single thing because you pay, right? You have to pay to get access to great AI, and the better, you have to pay for it more and more. This lives on your phone, locked down, doesn't go into the internet. You could do it in airplane mode and do everything. And like eventually what this is leading to is like embedded AI, which will be kind of embedded into like your coffee machine, your toaster, your air fryer, to a poster that's an out-of-home billboard or whatever else you come across, and being able to connect with it. But it just like, it's getting real this week with that, and you could all install the local LLM on your phone that cannot escape yet.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Erin, last word.
Okay, I'm going to go in a totally, on the plane on the way here, I watched a movie that I probably, had I not been held captive for 6 hours, it probably at first would have been too slow for me. But it was so beautiful. It's the movie that is about, I don't remember the name of the movie, but it's Rogers and Hart, who, what's it called? Blue Moon. Oh, it was the movie was absolutely beautiful. So Rogers and Hart are a songwriting duo that wrote a lot of famous songs, Blue Moon being one of them. The more famous duo was Rodgers and Hammerstein, who went on to write a bunch of the most well-known musicals. But previously there was Hart, and it's a bit of a tragic story. But it's all one night, in real time at a party, and it's slow, and the dialogue is so good and so well written. And I think I'm constantly in the like TikTok brain mindset. And so having something that it took me maybe 20 minutes to like really get comfortable sitting down and paying attention. But it was so beautiful, and I wept on the plane. And anyways, for me, that broke through because it was so unlike what I'm used to.
Yeah, we got the anti-AI and the anti-short form video. Okay, sweet. That's what's breaking through today. Okay, we have time for a couple audience questions. Go ahead.
So I'm curious. Thank you. I'm curious to understand what you all think about. I feel like there's a rise of anti-intellectualism and a lack of critical thinking. How will this impact trust that people have in the institutions that you work for with the rise of AI?
It's a great question.
That's such a meaty, massive question.
A big question. It's funny that you bring this up because I had this conversation with a friend of mine the other day that I'm like, I have to schedule time for like good, meaty, long form reading. And also started, even for myself, to give myself prompting questions after I read something of like, what did I just get out of that? How can I apply that to life? And the conversation, I think it doesn't just impact where we all work. I think it impacts everyone writ large, that like we operate in like cocktail hour snippets. And I do think that it's creating like mushy brains. But I've had this conversation with my son as well of like, you can't just, like, you have to actually read. Like, you have to read. And I think that it's a skill as humans that we almost have to like reteach ourselves. Like, I literally was like, what are the 3 prompts that I'm giving to myself after I read an article? Because I felt my brain was getting mushy from like the barrage of just information that's coming at me every day. And I didn't like what I was seeing. So it doesn't directly answer your question, but I think it's a bigger societal problem than just impacting companies.
Yeah, it is tough. I think we live in, I say we, I should speak for myself. I live in a space where the people that I'm talking to every day are quite educated, intellectual. I think they are willing and want to push their thinking and their ideas. But my bubble is easily popped in that many people across America don't maybe question what they saw. Like, I don't know, I grew up with media training and like media classes where it was like, how are you applying critical thought to this to ensure that like you actually believe what you're being told, and should you believe it? And I don't have children, so I don't know enough, but I have this assumption that like that's not maybe happening in most schools these days. And so like, I don't know what the responsibility is on the rest of us to encourage that system, but I think there's a lot of need for people to be informed of what they don't know and to be given the skills for critical thought, because it's going to keep getting mushier, and hopefully people in positions of authority and the ability to tap into media are ethical and doing our best not to abuse that, but it's not the people in this room I'm worried about.
Another question? We don't have a mic runner, so I'm the mic runner.
Oh, careful, it's a little wet.
So as like media is becoming more synthetic and easier to produce, and even hybrid stuff, what do you think the role of live media is? As you were just mentioning, for example, like watching this like incredible spectacle of like the moon exploration and everything like that, and how that sort of depositioned everything else on the internet for you that day. How do you guys see that sort of fitting into the larger landscape going forward?
I'll give you just a personal perspective. I think it's less about, live on demand, real. People want to be entertained, right? And if you can do that well, you can do that authentically, you can do that with a sense of humor, right? People will see it, right, and will consume it, and will get something out of it. That's my personal view.
I also think maybe not like live media, but live life. Like I think people are looking for ways to connect, and I think brands that can bring people together with a reason to connect and have a reason to be in that connection with them will be highly successful.
I think live media is huge right now. I mean, that's why all the all the streaming deals we're seeing, and linear, like I feel like live TV, live programming was like the last real holdout of linear TV, and now it's like, okay, well, we've seen the success of Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime and all these, use cases. So I imagine that's up and up, and more media dollars going into that.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm sorry. Any last word from our panelists? It shouldn't be coming from me. The last word. Anything else to add before I free our guests to have a cocktail? Okay, well, I want to thank all of our wonderful panelists for joining me, and all of you in the room. Thank you so much.